In his book, Click Here to Save Everything, the writer Evgeny Morozov says that we make a big mistake when we talk about the internet with a capital I, and this would apply to YouTube as well. In fact, he thinks we make a lot of mistakes, but the one I want to focus on today is he says people assume the internet will always be around. Sometimes we do this explicitly by saying that the internet has permanently changed the way that we do X, or it will have some huge revelation for the way that we think about or behave in terms of Y, like it'll forever change the way that we do business or education or government. And sometimes it's a little bit more implicit, like an article talking about how libraries are being closed down might offhandedly mention, oh, it's because people just get their information from the internet these days, people don't need libraries anymore. There's something peculiar about this failure of our collective imagination to unthink the internet. It is no longer discussed as something contingent, as something that can go away. It appears fixed and permanent, perhaps even ontological. The internet just is, and always will be. Morozov finds this concerning for a number of reasons, not least because of the fact that people sometimes talk about the internet as being incompatible with ideas like democracy or privacy. The internet is thus believed to possess an inherent nature, a logic, a teleology, and that nature is rapidly unfolding in front of us. We can just stand back and watch. The internet will take care of itself and us. If your privacy disappears in the process, this is simply what the internet gods wanted all along. But, he says, the internet isn't permanent. To the extent that the internet with a capital I even exists at all as a singular entity, it's not permanent. It's contingent. There was a time before the internet. I remember the time before the internet. I remember when our house got our first big old beige box computer and it had dial-up internet. And just as there was a time before it, there may well be a time after it. And knowing that it is contingent, we open the door to understanding that its nature doesn't really exist and is also contingent. It could be changed. It could be used for different purposes. And the idea that the internet is fixed, static, monolithic, and unstoppable greatly benefits the enormous companies who make bank off it. Rather like the narrative of libraries being closed because people just get all their information from the internet now and that's just the way it is, overlooks the fact that libraries are being closed because their funding is being cut. And once we reject the unstoppable internet hypothesis, we open the door to questions like, why is the funding being cut and where is that money being sent? Similarly, YouTube's seeming unstoppable, monolithic monopoly on online video greatly serves YouTube's own bottom line, as does the fact that changes to the platform and things like copyright strikes and algorithmic tinkering are all imposed from the top down rather than done in consultation with the creators. The current biggest online video platform in the world is not accountable to the people actually making the videos that drive the profit. It's to their advantage for us to just accept that that's the way it is and always will be, rather than imagine how we might like to change it. So let's do it together. Let's imagine the end of YouTube, and then see what we might dream up as a result. There are a few different ways that I can think of that YouTube might end. Maybe it starts to decline. Maybe more and more advertisers pull out. It becomes harder and harder for anyone to make any money on it. Maybe things like the adpocalypse just get worse and worse. Maybe the advertisers themselves who do stick around get so desperate that the adverts just become more and more invasive. Maybe it's not 5 seconds and you can skip, maybe it's 10 seconds and you can skip. Maybe we head towards a situation a bit like news media now, where you try and open a news article on your browser and like 50% of the screen is other stuff. And so maybe creators just leave the platform because it's obnoxious and they can't make a living off it anymore and they go somewhere else. And YouTube becomes just a place for huge media companies to publish music videos and movie trailers. Maybe some kind of regulation gets passed that makes it difficult. Maybe as a result of something like the YouTube Kids debacle, some law gets passed somewhere that says that there needs to be more human oversight in terms of what gets made. And at that point it no longer becomes possible for Google to really run it profitably. Maybe YouTube breaks. Maybe there's some huge bug with it that we don't know, like Y2K, as soon as the calendars change in 2019, all the videos just get deleted weird because there's something wrong with it that nobody realized. Maybe it gets hacked somehow, or there's some kind of massive leak of users' data. Maybe there's a combination of all of these things leads to a decline, and then maybe someday soon, perhaps even tomorrow, we wake up and we read the news that Google has decided to sell YouTube. Maybe they sell it to Time Warner. Time Warner were the people who bought MySpace back in the day. They sell it to some other major media conglomerate. We wouldn't be told about that in advance, or asked, or consulted. The news would just come down from on high, like the Ten Commandments. And maybe that new media company overseer would shut it down, or keep it going, or fold it into something else. Maybe Google would keep control of it, but they would fold it into Google++, or whatever comes next. It becomes part of something else and isn't its own thing anymore. Over time, free markets will tend towards monopoly. As some companies get bigger and bigger and bigger, they buy out their competitors, and it becomes easier for workers or people who are thinking about starting their own companies to just go and work for those companies rather than actually try and set up a competitor, because they become so big that they just dominate everything else. That's how come like all of the food in my whole country is distributed by like 5 companies. That's why about 90% of all the news and information media that anyone in the United States consumes is owned by about 6 companies. Over time, if left to its own devices, then a free market will concentrate wealth and power in fewer and fewer hands. So maybe YouTube gets sucked up by one of these huge media companies. Maybe somebody like Hank Green buys it in the end, and it just becomes another thing controlled by another rich dude. But maybe there's another option. Maybe there's a totally wild option. Maybe Google tries to sell YouTube, and it gets bought not by another business, but by the creators. By a YouTube trade union. A collection, not of business people, but of artists. Creators and artists owning the platform collectively, using it for our collective good, not the good of advertisers. Maybe we're in control of the algorithm, we're in control of the copyright strikes, we're in control of who gets demonetized, and if we want to turn YouTube into a wasteland of pirated music that no advertiser will ever touch, then if we want to, we can vote democratically in the union to do that. We wouldn't be accountable to commands from on high that just come down like a thunderbolt and wreck all our stuff every 5 months. If we want to host a bunch of weird video art, we can. If we want to host government secrets or investigative journalists and political rebels, then we can. Maybe that'll never happen. Maybe it will. But imagining the end of something, whether it's YouTube, Britain, landlords, America, and how life might go on, nevertheless, after those things are gone, can throw into sharp relief just how malleable the world is, and can start to make us wonder, if we could change it, how would we? Patreon.com/philosophytube is what keeps me making the show and affording rent. Please sign up to give whatever you can. Alternatively, paypal.me/philosophytube is where you can make a one-time donation.